Welcome to another episode of OG55. You got OG and Mr. Seymour Duck in the house. We're talking all about Comcast spinning off their cable networks. What does this mean? Why are they doing this? We're going to talk about it. We're going to speculate all about the ramifications of this move from Comcast Universal. Let's go. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of OG55. We got the one and only Mr. Seymour Duck back in the house. We're talking all about Comcast Universal spinning off their cable networks. Mr. Duck, it is always an honor having you on, sir. Thank you for joining me, brother.
Hello, and glad to be back and nerd out with you. It's just every time I'm here, I feel like I feel out of place because George is not in the top left.
I know.
Sorry, top right.
Yeah. Top right. Yeah. He'll be back. When George vacations, he vacations, and he's going to be gone now until December 14th, I think. But we're going to try to have him on while he's down here. So he will be doing some videos, but it's going to be a little harder to get him on because he's got a lot of Disneyland days and Universal and all this other stuff going on. But he'll be on a few times though while on vacation. So, but Mr. Duck, where can they find you on social media, sir?
Yeah, you can find me on basically every social media platform at Mr. Seymour Duck, except for Blue Sky, which is at MrDuck.social.
There he is, Mr. Duck. Follow him. Amazing insight into the financial world. If you're into Disney financials, if you're into Nintendo, investing, Seymour Duck is your guy. 100%.
Yeah, and unfortunately, not about VTubers anymore. I sold my shares for that company.
You sold your VTuber shares?
Yeah, because they're becoming. I wanted them to become like Nintendo, but they're not, and they're focusing on short-term profits now, and not focusing on the employees and the talent. The employees there, right, are leaving one by one, and it's like, no, I don't want that.
Yeah, hey,
it's not the Japanese way, and I can't do that. No, because I want a Nintendo way, but apparently not every company can do that.
No. I mean, Nintendo is a special kind of beast, They crack the code, and they've been doing very, very well. Very, very well. But here we go. This was actually from November 26th. So it's a few days ago. Comcast plans to spin off its cable networks and digital assets. It says here, Comcast, let me see here. Comcast Corp, a massive conglomerate that provides broadband services, operates theme parks, and a media company that includes NBC and affiliated properties, is planning to spin off a large part of its NBC Universal cable TV channels in a separate publicly traded company called SpinCo. The transaction will be structured as a tax-free spin, tax-free, to existing shareholders. Post-spinoff, the SpinCo portfolio would include a news portfolio including MSNBC, one of the most watched cable networks industry-wide, CNBC, which we've talked a lot about here on the channel, CNBC, the leader in business and marketing news, leading sports properties through USA and the Golf Channel, popular entertainment programming, USA E and Oxygen, a leader in true crime coverage, and a digital business that complements the above through Golf Now, Sports Engine, Fandango, and Rotten Tomatoes. Interesting about Rotten Tomatoes is that, from what I understand, it's a joint venture between Comcast and Warner Brothers, but everyone always has these conspiracy theories about Disney rigging the scores when Comcast and Warner Brothers actually own the website, which is just hilarious to me, Mr. Duck. But Seymour, what are your thoughts on this, man? They're spinning off the cable networks. What is going on here?
So when I first read this, when it was announced, and I saw it all over X and ironically CNBC, I actually thought it was all the networks, but it's not. It's the cable networks and digital assets. So we're only getting the cable networks. So NBC and whatnot, those, the broadcast networks are staying with Comcast Universal. And then now you have the Sci-Fi, Oxygen, Golf Channel. I mean, I can see what's happening. They're trying to spin it off because a good friend, what's on Disney Plus, Roger was saying it's a loophole. It's legal. You spin off a company, you put your lowest assets in place in there, and you move debt around, and you put the debt there. And then if that company goes out of business, you don't have to worry about it because you know Comcast Universal will stay fine, but that spinoff will not be fine. But that's okay because the original company is doing well, and I can see why they're doing it. And I think it's because they need to focus on in areas other for growth, such as theme parks.
Right.
And for
Yeah.
that to happen, they're going to have to remove some debt around.
Yeah, and you've mentioned that before in the channel, Seymour, where they're, a lot of fans, like, oh, they're getting into the theme park market. They're really aggressive with theme parks, and they are getting aggressive with theme parks, but it's not to do fans a solid. It's out of necessity because a lot of this kind of stuff isn't really pulling the weight anymore. So they have to offset that somehow. So they have to drastically expand their theme park portfolio, which is what they're doing, but it's interesting. This whole move. I had a theory. I was actually talking to Mr. Theme Park Wizard, a friend of both of ours. And there's been a lot of rumors, Seymour, that, Comcast might make a move for like Warner Brothers, like maybe their library, their IP library. And Wizard and I were kind of speculating that maybe this is like kind of indicative of a future Warner Brothers play. And I want to get your opinion on that, because if they're gonna acquire Warner Brothers, they're gonna have to offload some of this stuff, right? Like they can't just absorb Warner Brothers and not have to sell off any assets or spin off any assets. They would need to offload some of this stuff. Disney had to offload some stuff when they bought Fox, right? Usually when there's a big buy like that, you'd have to. Do you think it's a possibility, Seymour? This is preemptively offloading so they can potentially buy WB down the road, or is this not big enough for something like that? Because this is just cable.
I think actually it's both, but I don't think it is big enough to get it approved. So I think their intentions are, okay, we're now a much leaner company. We're going to move debt around to the spinoff, so then we can acquire another company that has a lot of debt, because Warner Brothers has a lot of debt, so that they're not overtaken with the debt they already have, and become this new entity. But I don't know, because Trump is now president and he's more, less regulated and more pro-business. So I don't know. It could get approved immediately, but like you said, with Disney, I think a little bit more needs to be pushed. Even when I first read this story, like I mentioned at the beginning, I thought it was actually all the networks, because that makes more sense. But now it's just cable networks. It's like, you're not really doing a solid. That antitrust is going to come in and be like, you still own NBC. You own those news networks. You got to push that around. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's the intention, but I don't think it's going to get approved. But like I said, they're looking for growth, and acquiring Warner Brothers will get those IPs, and then when they get those IPs, that's good for parks, especially when you already have IPs in those parks. But now you don't have to pay for them because you own them.
Yes, exactly. I'm glad you brought that up, Seymour, because one of their biggest, and this is one of my biggest criticisms of Universal in their theme park division, is that they rent a lot of IP. And all the IP that is culturally relevant is other people's IP, like Harry Potter, Nintendo. Their big heavy hitters in their parks are all licensed out. If they were to make a move for Warner Brothers, they wouldn't have to pay the licensing fee for that franchise anymore. They would own it. That would be an in-house Universal property. Then they can start making moves, maybe depending on how they can work it out with DC. I know DC already has deals with like Six Flags, Cedar Fair, stuff like that. But hey, look, they could negotiate, I think, the rights for those. There's nothing's off the table with that.
No, Disney had this similar issue as well with Marvel, with Universal.
Exactly. Disney had to, exactly, have a similar issue. So I think it would be a good move if they did buy Warner Brothers. I think it'd be great for their theme parks. I've been saying for a long time, they need better in-house IP, and that would instantly give them just a huge amount. I mean, Lord of the Rings, the amount of IP they would be inheriting. Warner Brothers arguably is like really second only to Disney when it comes to the IP stuff. You got Looney Tunes, all those great like Animaniacs, all that stuff, the Hanna-Barbera stuff would all be theirs too. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy,
But yeah, if you can go back to that website
Yeah, I
if
got
it's
you.
possible,
Yeah, no
and
worries.
go to that chart.
At the very bottom.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second. There we go.
Yeah. So when you look at this and you see the whole company of Comcast, Universal, and you see that green part, that's the only thing that's being spun off. And that's why I think it's not going to get approved, because they're not, you have to give them a little bit more if you want to acquire Warner Brothers.
Okay, so this would have to be like a first step as opposed to like the end all be all.
Yeah.
Like if they were going to get Warner Brothers, you'd have to maybe offload maybe their broadcast network too or something like that, Seymour?
Yeah, maybe Warner and Warner Brothers are probably going to do that as well. And that's what I was thinking when I first read this. Like, I actually thought, okay, they're going to merge with Warner Brothers, and all their networks are going to be at a separate company. And then when they want to acquire Warner Brothers will also spin off their networks, and they will just become a production company so that they can. And I actually think that's smart, like Sony does, where they could. Because I see it now already that they're licensing all their TV shows and movies in other networks or streaming services like Netflix and Amazon, right? And that's where you get a lot of your money now, because Peacock's not doing well. But apparently that's not what's happening. They want to keep Peacock and they want to keep growing that. But I was thinking that, okay, it's all the networks, but it's not. Maybe it will go from there for when it needs to be merged. Because look, you don't need streaming service when you're having Warner Brothers, but then you also have the antitrust again. It's like, well, now you're going to acquire Max, and it's like, well, you already own Peacock. There's a lot of things where if you wanted to own Warner Brothers, and you have to give a little to get a little, and I don't think this is enough.
Yeah, they're going to have to offload more than what they're offloading here. Definitely, I would agree with you on that. And it would be interesting now with Trump coming in January. His administration is a little more friendly with deals like this, right? From what I understand, Seymour.
Yeah, Disney got approved with Trump as president with the buying Fox. T-Mobile got approved for buying Sprint, and Sprint was in the courts for many years when Obama was president. But then when Trump was president, oh yeah, it's just a few more months, and there we go, got approved. So it's like he's pro big business. So if it's American and it's big business, he likes that. And this is an American company with another American company, so it's great. If it was, let's say, Sony and was going to buy Warner Brothers, I don't think that's going to get approved by the courts.
Yes, that's a fantastic point. These are two American companies, and you're right. Trump is a businessman. Before he was a politician, he was a businessman. You know what I'm saying? And we've seen it even in his last administration, like we talked about on the show before. But it bears repeating. He had Bob Iger on his economic advisory board for a while. You know what I'm saying? He has. I think Trump has a baseline respect for these companies. I know a lot of conservatives kind of get into this thing about like Disney's woke and Trump's really gonna like stick it to the mouse house. I don't think he is. I think he is very much understanding of how business works and operates, and I don't think he's gonna sabotage these big companies. I think DeSantis was sort of DeSantis was a little more vindictive, I think. You know what I'm saying, with that whole thing.
Yeah, even Trump said it during one of his rallies that, you know what, I could have just made one phone call to Disney and fixed this whole issue when Ron DeSantis was campaigning as president.
Exactly. He wasn't happy. I remember that too, Seymour, where he was really critical of DeSantis and his handling of the Disney thing. And they, by and large, are kind of on the same page with the woke stuff. But DeSantis was kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater in a lot of ways, where he was almost like this vindictive, like, yeah, we're also going to build a prison right here on the property, or if we wanted to, we could. It's like, why would you even as a joke, why would you even say that? It just, yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother can of worms.
Especially when it's an American company with American employees. You don't want that company to go down. You want people to have jobs.
Right, exactly. Why would you do everything in your power to hurt that company? And I feel like that's what DeSantis was trying to do. Now, ultimately, it worked out. Okay, it worked out. Disney World will be just fine. It's all good. But there was a time there when it was like he was just like, oh, they hurt my feelings, so I'm gonna mess with them now, that kind of vibe. And Trump is a little different. I think he's much more business savvy, and he's not going to play that game. So it's possible with this Comcast Warner Brothers thing, it gets approved. Now, obviously, like you were saying, Seymour, they're going to have to offload some stuff. Warner will probably have to offload some stuff, and then maybe they can come together. But right now, I mean, you're thinking the chances are pretty decent, though, huh, for this merger to eventually happen.
Eventually, if they're pursuing it, I think it will happen one way or another. They're going to make changes within the deal, in the spinoffs or something to get it. But if it's happening, it's going to happen.
Okay, interesting.
That's what I believe in. And and like I said, they're going to spin off this company, and it's look, I'm not predicting the future, but it's going to spin off this company. The linear networks are already dying. Cable networks, going down. They're going to go bankrupt. If you own Universal, like Comcast Universal, and they spin off those free shares for you, I would recommend selling them, because it's not going to be any value anytime soon.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, right. because like, come on, it's only the cable networks too, right? Right now, right? So right now with the spinoff, they don't need that much approval for the spinoff. That's going to be easy. It's the merger. But if they spin it off, and then let's say they need more stuff to spin it off, and then they put more debt, it's just that it's like AMC kind of did it in a way, where they spun off this new ticker called Apes, and they put all their debt in there, and then it's like I said, it's a legal loophole, so they can just be a leaner company with less debt and take off their worst assets and pretend like they're doing a favor for everyone, but they're not. Because if those networks did really well, you would have kept them.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's a show game, basically, right? Is what you're saying. Yeah. It's a show game. Yep. So, and it's legal, like you said, it's a legal loophole. They're gonna work the system. It's fine. I mean, they can do it, but you're right. Let's be honest about why they're doing it. Let's be honest about why they're doing it.
And they will not own the studios when they spin it off, these cable networks. And that's the one thing that I'm like worried about. And that's why I think the company's not going to do well, because essentially at a point where they would just have to buy all the licensed content for you to show up on cable, like the linear. And it's like, why? When it's already a dying industry? Like, how are you going to make money? There's your growth, right? Right. Essentially, Comcast Universal will sell out their shows to those networks that they spun off and make more money. So they're going to make more money off their own spin-offs. This whole thing is, it's not a Ponzi scheme, but it's a legal loophole.
Yeah, no, 100%. Now we talk a lot about on this channel, Seymour, you and I and George too. We talk a lot about CNBC and their kind of their anti-Disney sort of bias, because obviously, I mean, it's so predictable. It's Disney's biggest competitor, Universal, their network. And you see, we talk about all the time, CNBC, they get up there and they just trash Disney constantly, right? And it's been a little better, to be fair. I think with Hugh Johnston being on their board, he's on some board over there. And I think that the relationship has gotten a little better over there at CNBC. But with all that said and done, though, now that CNBC will not be part of Comcast proper, do you think we're going to see different coverage for Disney on CNBC now that they're not technically part of this Comcast Universal?
Absolutely, because their parent company are not funding them anymore. They need money. So they're going to have to be happy. They have to make peace with everyone now in order to get that money coming in. Because they're not longer, the branding of Peacock would be removed. I don't even know if it's going to be CNBC anymore, right? Or NBC, MSNBC, because that branding, you might have to get rebranded. Because the Peacock is no longer owned by these cable networks. It's owned by Comcast Universal.
That's a great point, Seymour. I didn't even consider that. They might, either they're going to have to license out the iconography or the whatever you would call that, the Peacock. They'd have to pay maybe Universal a licensing fee to use that in that name or something like that. Or like you were saying, they would have to just rebrand it. And fascinating. I'm thinking they might rebrand, though. I think they might go that route. I'm thinking that's kind of the route they might go in. So
yeah, they might have to rebrand, start fresh. Like oh, look at us, we're for everyone now. We're not a Comcast company. We're a Spinco company, right? And then a lot of times even CNBC, you see in the shows, you can see the tickers of the actual companies they talk about, and it's being promoted. So a lot of the time, I don't know what's going behind the scenes, but a lot of times, they pay them for more publicity. So I would not be surprised if they're more pro Disney when they become a spinoff, a spinco.
Yeah.
Because
who's that guy that he's always on Twitter, Sherman. Is it Alex Sherman? You know what I'm talking about? He's a CNBC contributor. Oh man, I forgot his name now. It's Sherman something. Our friend Hedge always talks shit to him on Twitter.
Oh, there's so many people on CNBC that talk shit about Disney.
Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting. But I'm curious to see if his tune changes. But go on, Seymour. I do apologize.
But speaking of tune changing, Jim Cramer's tune has been changing. And he's been on even the latest Disney cruise and taking photos with Josh. And Josh was even on CNBC and had an interview with Jim Cramer.
I saw that. We were talking about that in the DMs. Isn't that interesting? I've never seen Tomorrow do a thing like that, like a very financial heavy kind of interview like that. So it was definitely a test, I think, from the board and Bob Iger, a test to see how Tomorrow can kind of handle himself in that environment. It was definitely a CEO test, which is interesting. I didn't watch it though. How did he do, Seymour? Did you watch it?
It felt very suit-like, very professional. And well, because the audience for CNBC, that's who they're targeting. So I don't blame him if that's what he's going for. But it felt very professional, suit-like, like we're becoming a CEO of a company. But the one thing I found strange was that Jim Cramer was very positive about Disney, when before in the past he wasn't. And now the Spinco and everything happening here, it's like everything's falling into place, and they're realizing that, we can't be negative about Disney because they're going to become our customers soon, so we're going to have to be good about it. That's what it felt like to me when I saw it.
Yeah. Oh, they're going to have to pivot. They're going to have to pivot. Now, speaking of pivoting, I want to touch upon this a little bit. We talked about it a little bit in the pre-show, but I want to just kind of pick your brain, because it really is the talk of the town right now, is this Moana 2 thing. I mean, they took they took Moana 2. It was originally a series, and they turned it into a movie, and it's become this record-breaking weekend. It was like 200 and something million this weekend or something crazy. Seymour?
Yeah, it's beating records. It's like the number one animated film for box office for over the weekend, outpacing Frozen, outpacing Super Mario Brothers, outpacing all of them.
Unbelievable. And just last year, we were hearing all about brand damage and how Disney and their brand was in serious trouble. It's going to take years, Seymour, years to claw their way back up, because families just don't trust Disney anymore. And here we are, how quickly families started to trust Disney again, right? Didn't take very long, which proves our point, Seymour, that we've been saying for a long time, where it was never about families not trusting Disney. It was, hey, you know what? Wish doesn't look interesting enough to spend $100 to go to the theater. That's really how simple it was. And now we're seeing how that it was actually the case. Because the minute movies came out that the general public wanted to see, they rushed and lined up to see it, whether it was Deadpool and Wolverine, which is a Disney thing, right? Whether it was Inside Out 2, whether it's Moana 2. There is no brand damage. People just didn't like the movies and the product Disney was releasing last year. It was that simple. But what are your thoughts on that, brother?
Yeah, I agree, because I heard it all over X that Pixar is dead, Marvel is dead, Disney Animation is dead, and yet we're seeing good quality content being released in the movie theaters, and it's being proven that's not the case. And people vote with their wallets, and they're consistently watching this content that's being released by Disney, and it's great.
Yeah,
and it's a win for everyone, because you're getting good quality content. Disney's getting their money, and we're getting the content that we wanted.
Right. Exactly. No, this is a huge win. This Moana 2. I mean, Disney's ending the year in an absolute banger. This is Disney's year for sure, 2024. This Moana franchise, we've been saying it for a long time, is a monstrous franchise. I mean, this thing is like another Frozen, basically. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see an expansion of Moana in the theme parks. I mean, we have that little water thing over at Epcot, the Journey of Water. It's cute, but we're definitely going to get some big attraction with Moana. I mean, this franchise is so lucrative for Disney. I just can't see them not trying to like take advantage of that more and more. I'm sure Moana 3 is on the horizon, right? Almost certainly.
Well, I haven't seen the movie, so I don't know if there's any continuation at the end for a third one. But if it's doing well, I mean, like,
yeah,
money talks. So
yeah, exactly. And there were a lot of predictions out there in the in our space, right? A lot of predictions out there about this movie and stuff like that, and it's doing buco bucks. I think far better than anyone even predicted.
And people said that nobody wants to watch sequels anymore, and yet everyone goes and watches sequels.
Inside Out 2 and Moana 2 are both are doing banger numbers,
And I know some people are going to say, no, we don't want any more live action Disney movies, but yet you're watching them. I mean, The Lion King, which was just a remake, it had nothing different. It was just a live action remake, and yeah, it did well. It was in the top 10 of all movies all time, right?
Yeah.
And now we're going to get Mufasa, and which is actually a different story, live action, and I think that's also going to be a hit.
Yeah. No, I think it'll do well. Yeah.
Even though I'm not going to go out and see it, and it's not my cup of tea, other people will, and if they like it, they will, spend their money and watch it. If they don't like it, they will rather wait and watch it on streaming, because that's what I think has happened with a lot of their movies in 2023. That word of mouth or reviews or anything they see on the internet, they're like, oh, this is not worth my money. So then they're like, I'll just wait for it to streaming. And then you see a lot of the shows or movies, the movies do well on Disney Plus because they waited. It's not worth their money to spend at a movie theater, especially when inflation is high, ticket prices are high, foods are like, even the concession stand prices are high. It's not worth it for me. I don't even go to the movie theaters anymore. I used to go all the time when I was a kid. Now it's like I go once in a while when it's a movie I really wanted to see. Yeah. And I only go VIP because I don't care for seeing kids in the movie theater. So I go to 18 plus VIP where I can have a drink and actually good food. And then, just the other day I was watching Wicked, and I was like, that movie actually, I was willing to spend money to see that movie.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you do VIP in the theater because, you and I both are used to our special access, Seymour. So it's good that that bleeds over into your theater going experience. All kidding aside. No, I'm the same way though. I'm very particular with what movies I see. My, I have a family member. He loves going to the theater. So every now and then he'll ask me like, hey, OG, would you like to go see this movie or that movie with me? So I'll go with him. I'm not like a huge theater guy, but I'll go with him. And we saw Gladiator 2 this past weekend. Great movie, man. I loved it. I really, really loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Now you saw Wicked. What did you think about that?
As a musical fan, I thought it was amazing. Was the trailer. Don't watch it because I'm saying it's good, but I'm just giving this like a minute review. When you watch the trailers and you're like, I don't know, the trailer didn't do any of the movie justice. It actually was really good, and and the singing was really good. Ariana Grande, I saw there was a tweet that she said she had lessons to sound more opera-like, and it shows. And then the singers, I'm trying not to give any spoilers, but I mean, it's Wicked. It's Wizard of Oz themed. Like a lot of people already know, but when they did the movie, they did it live, the singing, so you can actually see them. There's no lip syncing in that movie. So when you watch the movie and you realize this is actually them singing, as a musical fan, I was happy. I was like smiling, and maybe a tear might have came at the end of the movie, but it was really good. Everyone was happy. It was good.
Interesting. Okay, I might have to check it out. So we'll see. All right. Well, interesting, man. So Moana 2, we'll see how this does next weekend. I think it'll be very, very interesting to see if it legs out. I think it will. I think that most families, the normies, the general public, are coming out of this movie having a good time with it. I think it's going to be $1 billion movie. I'm calling it now.
And I think it was one of the biggest mistakes that Bob Chapek did, was trying to put this on Disney Plus, focus on quantity and not quality.
Right. Exactly.
And
Exactly.
Bob Iger came and he's like, nope, we're putting it in the movie theater. Why are we wasting money on good content?
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. Put it in theater. Then because you get the theater money, the box office money, and it's gonna hit Disney Plus anyway. Still, after its massive box office run, it'll hit the streamer and make money on the streamer too now.
Exactly.
And God knows how long it'll do well on the streamer. I mean, the first movie is still doing great numbers, you know?
And then the in-betweens, when people are still apparently still buying those digital copies off Amazon or iTunes.
Yeah.
Apparently people are still doing that and they're doing well. I remember Mario was doing extremely well before it went on Netflix in Canada or Amazon Prime or Peacock. I remember it always being number one on iTunes charts being downloaded.
It's a monster of a hit. This Moana franchise is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But Mr. Seymour Duck, I do appreciate you as always, sir. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, I'm sorry, folks, but I'm not going to see Mufasa. I'm going to see Sonic 3.
There you go. Exactly. Exactly. Actually,
but I don't. I don't think it's going to be a terrible movie, Mufasa. I actually think it's going to do really well, and I actually think it's going to do over $1 billion. But it's not my movie, and I'm okay with that. And I'm going to go see Sonic 3 because that's a movie I like.
Exactly. No, that's great. I think that's fantastic. I think honestly, I don't know. I think I'm not like a huge video game person, but I think if there's Mufasa in this theater and Sonic in this one, I probably would see Sonic as well. I think that's a fun franchise.
I know Mr. Webber would see Sonic.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my gosh. There's no doubt about it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Mr. Duck, thank you so much for joining today. If you let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, you can find me on social media at Mr. Seymour Duck or at Blue Sky at mrduck.social.
There he is. Make sure you follow this man on all of his platforms. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of OG55. Comment down below with all your thoughts on Comcast spinning off their cable networks like MSNBC, CNBC, and what have you. Comment down below with all your thoughts on Moana 2 and its initial box office run this past weekend. What are your thoughts on that? We would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching episode of OG55. And until the next time, see you.
Thank you for watching OG55. If you aren't already, consider becoming a member today.